This is April 3rd, 2019. Carbon farming. Overwhelming foam mounts above glossy films of slate. Junctions face us, leaning outside the marketplace, and ingrained patterns abroad enable monopoly. Ripples and lines of reason test our wavy, silent excuses of sprouted ignorance. For such a time as this, persistence lowly drums. Constructing and repairing one solitary habitable planet requires aligning to nature's way. Today, exquisitely sensible improvements in farming are taking hold as rising pressure and climate insecurity prod. Advocates of carbon farming speak. An apparently loose and hands-off approach to farming finds voice among the decadence of the empire. A recently concluded 4.5-year field trial by David Johnson of New Mexico State University clarifies several benefits of carbon farming. Carbon farming involves techniques that extract carbon from the atmosphere and store it in soils. Johnson argues that we currently have very degraded soils, physically, chemically, but mostly biologically. He believes microbes should be used to restore balance and quality to soils. In the project, he planted cover crops and added a homemade microbe-rich solution. The bacteria, fungi, and protozoa fed a soil food web of nematodes and microarthropods and other beneficial organisms. By tipping the soil's fungi to bacterial ratio strongly toward fungi, Johnson reported a net annual increase of almost 11 metric tons of soil carbon per hectare in his cropland. In addition to high levels of carbon capture, he found crop yields increased. He reported that one plot increased net primary productivity 5 times, and the soil accumulated 770 pounds of nitrogen per acre per year. This is significant because nitrogen is considered a limiting nutrient in agriculture, and most crops require 180 pounds of nitrogen, usually supplemented through fertilizer. It is important to point out that soils do not absorb carbon indefinitely. After a few years and decades, they reach a steady state. Soil carbon sequestration is therefore rarely viewed as a long-term solution to carbon dioxide excesses. Still, Johnson's methods bring benefits beyond carbon capture, such as reduced irrigation, increased soil fertility, and greater crop yields. Akin to carbon farming is organic farming. A rising generation of organic farmers are proving that holistic, sustainable farming practices show greater crop success, yields, and nutritional value than any other methods. Teddy Moynihan, one farmer growing vegetables and livestock in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, challenges conventional farming by applying rotational grazing. In rotational grazing, energy is conserved better than in conventional pastures. Manure and urine are spread more consistently, and growing periods are spaced purposefully, which produces more biomass to turn into compost. The livestock mow the grass down, then fill it with manure, and then we move them. The manure turns into fertilizer in the soil and is given months to regrow. All the while, the animals are moving on to another section, Moynihan said. This way of farming conserves and recycles energy more efficiently than large-scale monocultural plantations. Another growing practice in sustainable farming is permaculture. Logan David, a landscape designer and owner of a small farm, calls these food forests. He says that food forests are similar to reforestation because they mimic the ecology of natural forests. The biggest difference, David says, is that in a food forest, almost everything is edible. So just like a forest sequesters more atmospheric carbon than a grass lawn, so too does a mature food forest sequester more carbon than a conventional industrial farm's wheat monocrop. In a permaculture food forest, the ground is always covered. This helps the soil become a natural carbon sink. Tilling is unnecessary and altering ground cover is rare, since tilling releases carbon in the soil and destroys fungi and other microbes that keep the soil healthy. Maintaining ground cover also suppresses weeds and encourages perennial plants. But these farms are especially vulnerable to climatic disasters. Larger farms with more land and equipment, general experience, crop insurance, and government subsidies tend to be more resilient. Yet many alt-style farmers are fully engaged in the fight for deep and creative adaptation against the 21st. Calls to sustain humankind at last reach ears tuned for change, and the finest organically fueled engine in the universe breathes slightly.